Hey, everybody, welcome to the second edition of the newsletter of the Soccer Brain. And I want to dive a little bit into academic theory using the terminology because I think that a lot of coaches who've been coaching for years, they do lack familiarity with academic theory, especially vocabulary. So, in a perfect world, you have the academics and the coaches meet and they can both learn a lot from each other. So today we're going to jump right into it. I want to start with perception because perception leads to action. Now, it's not quite that simple, but your perception is visual. So whatever your visual search is looking at, right, is what you perceive. Now, there is a catch here. You could be looking in a direction, but you could be not, and they call it attuned, your attunement. You could be not attuned to certain things while others are attuned to certain things. It's the same vision, you're looking at the same picture, but in a case of, say, high level players, they may attune, focus their attention onto something different than a lower level player and vice versa. Now, if you go ahead and you ask them, the higher level player, what were you looking at? What were you thinking? They're actually not very good at recalling that. It's just what happens with them over time in that feedback loop at the they're in this constant feedback loop. The athlete, the teammates, the opponents, the environment, it's all in one real time feedback loop. The athlete is not going into past memory saying, hey, listen, I was in this situation 6 months ago and I noticed this. So now I'm going to do this. That is not what we do in that current feedback loop. Now, it's not A plus B equals action C. There's not some supercomputer in your brain that's doing that. Just think of it that the athlete is in a feedback loop with the environment through visual perception and what they are focusing on. What are they attuned to? Now, perception equals action. And when I say that, let's think about this. If you're running to catch a baseball, you are coupling your physical actions to your direct perception of where the ball is. The reflection of the light coming off the ball is telling you how fast it's going, how close it's coming to you, when it's going to get to you, and and so forth. So you're coupling your physical actions, means you're running, you're lifting your hand, you're getting your glove ready to catch the ball. That's all in a real feedback loop with the environment of which you are attuned to the information so you can get there and catch the ball at the right time. Now, in a dynamic game like soccer, you could change intentions. So you might, in the real feedback loop, if the defender starts to step to the left and you see the opportunity to go the other way, you can go the other way. But say before you even start going the other way, the defender changes again, you can change intentions in real time, right? This is not something that you're thinking about. This is happening naturally. Now, there is something that is called um your 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 knowledge base, and I'll give you an example. Like, soccer is a game, it's played with rules. It is not just pure random, because I can't run down the field, pick the ball up and throw it into the stands or throw it into the goal. Do I have to consciously access that knowledge base to remind me not to do that? No, it's already there. It's already part of what I know. Now, this goes into a bigger conversation of perception equals action, and there is always opportunities for action that are opening and closing in real time. So if there's an opportunity for me to exploit space and time, say the back line is pushed up high and there's an opportunity to hit a longer ball over the top to a fast winger, that opportunity for action is there. And if I have the ability to kick the ball 40 yards behind the back line, that is called an affordance. That is an action that I personally am capable of doing. So the invitation for action opens up through direct perception, my visual search, and my affordance is what I'm capable of. And I can hit that ball 40 yards behind the back line, and that winger can run into that space and score. If the winger sees the same thing that I see, that is called a shared affordance. So this terminology is very, very important. But where I want to bring this is, how does this play into the environments that we create for the players? Because if you create great environments, it's way more effective than anything a coach can verbally tell you or give you feedback on. Now, the way that we can manipulate environments is we can constrain them. They're called constraints. When you can constrain an environment to change perception, which will change action. And again, um, one of the guys that I've worked with, I consulted, he consulted for me, which was Rob Gray, which most people know him working for the Boston Red Sox as a skill acquisition coach. I believe he's with the Chicago Cubs now. He had told a story in one of his books about perception, which I found very, very interesting, where it's about a mountain climber. And the mountain climber had really good hand strength, grip strength. So when he viewed the mountain, he looked for a path that he can go up the mountain based upon his grip strength. Now, to use a constraint, you would put mittens, say, on his hands. Now, these big fluffy mittens take away that climber's ability to use grip strength. It's the same mountain, but the key is he perceived or she perceives the mountain for foot grips now. Where can they place their feet to get up the mountain because their hands are not able to do what they normally did because they're wearing mittens? It's the same mountain, but it's a completely different picture because we have to use visual search and perceive it in a different way. And this is where we come to soccer environments and how you use constraints. So I'll give you just a few examples. And these are very simple examples. So the first time I can remember actually taking part in a training exercise where, whether it was maybe 8 versus 5 finishing on goal, right? And the 5 defenders were maybe 4+1, but we only had 12 seconds to score. And it completely changed my visual search because with the 12 seconds clicking down, I had to look, can I get it to the back foot of the striker who's in a tiny bit of space? And I would have never looked for that before. So it changes my visual search, which changes my action, which in turn develops tactical and even technical skill sets and builds an overall knowledge base and soccer intelligence in the players. That's the constraint of time. Now, you could use that in a million different ways. I'm just giving you some quick examples. Maybe another one would be, hey, we're going to do 1v1 with some players and we're going to develop them at a youth club. If you have that 1v1 in a very narrow space, so your space and your shape of whatever exercise you're doing is a constraint. So if it's a very narrow field, now maybe the kid with a lot of speed has to develop a little different skill set to get by the defender because they can't just run by him because the field is very, very narrow. Maybe a big, wide field, now it's a different skill set. So the shape of the field and the size of the field is a constraint that can change perception, which changes action. If you think about a simple rondo, right? Well, what if it's two touch, then the next touch must be one touch, and then two touch, and then one touch? The kids have to perceive completely different now. If it's mandatory two touch for everyone, that first touch has to always open to space because they don't have the one touch option. It's a completely different perception. And like I said, perception changes action. And over the long term, the more that you can change perception and action, you develop these incredibly well rounded players who are adaptable to all these types of environments, and they have multiple ways to solve problems on the field. And solving problems is about exploiting time and space to score goals and shutting down time and space to stop the opponent from scoring and to eventually regain the ball. So hopefully you got something from that. And I'm going to go back next week on newsletter 3, and I'll dissect an exercise for you. And I think I might flip flop and go from theory one week to an exercise back to theory. So I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.